Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Just Be a Man podcast, where we offer commentary from a man's perspective. I'm your host for this evening, Charles, and we have the usual cast of suspects, minus one. Wayne could not be with us this evening, but we have Chuck,
Yo,
Stefan,
Good evening.
and Mike.
How to do?
And our topic for this evening is the crabs in a barrel mentality.
man.
So this is something that is very interesting, and I'm sure
Everywhere.
that it is. Unfortunately, it's everywhere. So for those
Start
of
out
you that are
first
not, man, who you lying? It started back
Yeah.
in biblical times. What you talking about?
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, I'm the
yeah. So this is sort of a old topic, but not too many people really talk about it openly, and so that is exactly what we're going to do this evening. Talk about the crabs in the barrel mentality. Now, if you take a bunch of crabs and you place them in a barrel, something very interesting starts to happen. Individually, on their own, each crab has the ability to climb out of the barrel.
Yeah.
However, even if one of them attempts to get out of that barrel, what happens is the rest of the crabs will actually gang up on that crab. In some cases, dismember them, literally take their legs off for trying to get out. And if the crab persists, they would even take the crab's life. They would kill the crab. And so that, in essence, is the crab mentality. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the question that we have for this evening to get us started is, why does that mentality exist? What is going on? So, Stefan, let's start with you.
Well, I think the mentality exists out of pure jealousy. It's one of those, if I can't have it, you can't have it mentalities.
Mhm.
And it manifests itself. And you see it quite often. You see it with people that are poor, and they start laughing or joking or conniving, people that are trying to become successful. You even see it with rich people who they have no problems of cutting someone else down because they don't have what the next person has. And out of jealousy, instead of sharing or at least working to get to another level, they'll tear each other down. Of course, I could say our current president is a crab. He has that mentality, but it is what it is. So, that's what I look at when it comes to crab in the barrel mentality.
Okay. All right. Way to get us started, Stefan. Mike, what about you?
I think a lot of things can contribute to that, Charles. We dealt with it when we were kids. We dealt with it when we were teenagers. We dealt with it when we're adults. I think it's sociological. It goes back to the old times or whatever, when a lot of people were oppressed. And sometimes when, like the misery loves company thing, like if I'm miserable, I feel even better when you're miserable, because I can handle my misery, and I can handle it when you're miserable also.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it goes back to a conformist mentality, where if you're not conforming with us, you're against us. And I think when people don't think you have the same vision, that's something
Sounds like we lost Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah, he dropped for a second, so that's okay. Having a little technical difficulties with our boy Mike. I'm sure he'll be back in a second.
I think he just got back.
Okay, so Chuck, why don't you pick up where Mike left off?
Okay, so well, I actually want to piggyback on what Stefan said. I think he's hit the nail on the head. I think jealousy is a big part of it. I think envy. You see people around you doing well. You want what they have, and I think there's other reasons too. Like for some people, it may be a means to an end. that's the way they know how to get ahead. That's what they've done all their life. So it translates into, they did it when they were kids. It translates into when they're an adult.
Mhm.
You know, um, people that in the workplace that have no patience. You have you know, yeah, they just have no patience. They want everything today.
Mhm.
And so you may lie, cheat, and steal to get ahead. Tell on their co-workers, so they can get ahead and keep everybody else, behind them or whatever, or thin out the herd. So I mean, I think there's a whole bunch of reasons why people do it, and like you said, man, I think we were talking about it earlier. I mean, it ain't nothing new, man. It's old
Mhm.
stuff here. I mean, it goes back to the sandbox,
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
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 So
Yeah, and unfortunately, this type of mentality really manifests itself when you're dealing with people that are close to you.
yeah.
Because we're not talking about strangers per se. We're talking about friends. We're talking about family members. We're talking about co-workers, of course, members of our community, all engaging in this type of activity. And it seems to be a lot more prevalent in some communities versus others. I think Stefan spoke to the fact that many folks in the poor communities, especially, engage in that mentality. Now, I actually was looking back at the historical connotation, if you will, of the crabs in the barrel mentality. And the
Mm,
first time it was actually referenced, from what I've researched, is back when Booker T. Washington in 1901 wrote an autobiography entitled Up from Slavery.
mm,
And he offered the metaphor of the crabs in a barrel mentality to illustrate how too often members of the race would not let each other succeed, but
mhm,
would instead pull each other back when they were trying to better their conditions or
mm,
escape from whatever situation that they were in.
mhm.
So, like you said, it's something that has been around since the beginning of time. We're talking, if you even look in the Bible, uh, Cain killed his brother Abel, okay,
Sure did.
over jealousy. We're talking
Mm,
about Joseph. His brothers sold him into slavery
mm,
for many of the same reasons. So this is a mentality that has been around since the beginning of time. Mike, you were going to
mm,
chime in?
Yeah, man. I would just want to say, man, I mean, nobody's born with that mentality. I don't think anybody's born with it. It's something that you see, that's something that you're exposed to. And it's an oppressor mentality.
Hmm.
And it's
yeah.
something that can be conscious, or there's something that can be unconscious. Some people don't even realize they're doing it because it's what they've seen other people do and they haven't said anything. And
Hmm.
maybe they wanted to say something, they wanted to do something. So sometimes it happens. I think people really don't realize it.
Yeah.
Just like if and sometimes their feelings get misconstrued instead of them saying what they're really saying. So
Hmm.
just for example, instead of somebody saying, "Oh, you got that promotion because you kissed ass,"
Hmm.
instead of saying, instead of saying I might have failed somewhere, where did you go right so I can follow that path?
Hmm.
Instead of being honest about it, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Don't
Right.
say, you got that, you kissing a lot of ass. How about you saying, yo, man, how'd you do that? What did you do extra? Well, I
That's,
stayed
Right.
late.
that's
I
right.
stayed up till midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning for the last 2 3 months. There's always a reason for it, but I don't think people are born with it. I think that oppressive mentality is a learned mentality, and we learn it from not only from what we see on social media, but sometimes even through family.
Mhm,
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And social media, oh my God, man, everybody is
mhm,
putting forward their representative, their best foot forward in social media as if they have no problems in the world. They're
mhm.
living this perfect life. They're always turned up, taking pictures, things of that nature.
Right.
And meanwhile, they might be struggling behind the scenes.
Right,
But that
Mhm,
social
right.
media mentality, I think, really impacts a lot of people in terms of the crabs in the barrel syndrome, for sure.
mhm.
Chuck, you were going to say something else about that?
No, no, I was agreeing with you. Yeah.
Yeah. So the question I have next is, how do you actually identify the people that have this type of mentality? I think,
Mm,
jealousy, envy, things of that nature are, they're things that aren't necessarily spoken all the time, but
mhm,
how do you actually identify it?
I'll tell you. Let me jump in.
Hmm.
This is how I learned how to do it. I learned this at Morgan State University. because there were a couple guys in Cummins Hall. Matter of fact, one is I know he's still around that had the crab in the barrel mentality. So I learned who I could trust and who I could really that would always uplift me. And three of the guys are right here on this podcast right now. The fourth one is just not available. That's my circle of friends, guys. That I really, I mean, of course I have other associates, people that I've known when growing up,
Right.
but none of you guys have ever said, hey, you can't do that stuff. Don't do that. I wouldn't go, you know, it's always uplifting. It's always, we got your back, bruh. Whatever you're going to try to do, we support you 100%. Unless it was something illegal, then y'all will probably smack me in the back of the head.
Right, right.
But other than that, you know, you identify the people that are going to uplift you and, you know, and not pull you down. So that's the best way to identify, at least for me, someone that may be a potential crab in the barrel.
Mm-hmm. Now, all of us have had haters around us. So again, how do you identify those individuals, Chuck?
They tell you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they ask you questions. They gossip. You know, they you know, like in my situation was I'll use business. You know, in business, I never looked at the competition as competition. The only people that I was really in competition with was myself. And that's the message that I always try to spread and portray and talk to other people in my professional craft. But man, you had dudes that would, I mean, they were, you know, what's the best term? Smile in your face, you know, but all the while they want to take your place.
Backstabbers.
Right. So our community is pretty small. So I'm talking to some of these guys. Oh man, yeah, you know, I appreciate your work and all that. But you know, I'm hearing over here they're saying other stuff, trying to tear me down. And then, but they're coming to me about the same people they were talking to, you know, about me. They're talking to me about them, and it's like they're trying to start this, you know, this infighting and stuff like that, and turn people against each other. And then, you know, but then they want to play the good guy. You know, it's just wow.
And Chuck, one of those guys you told me about, he still shows up on Facebook, and I refuse to patronize him because he was stabbing you in the back in the day.
Man, you know, but look, and I was sending business this guy's way, you know, and he never sent any business my way.
Right.
But I would always send business his way. And, you know, hey man, I appreciate it, whatever. But then, you know, the client would call me and say, man, this dude, you know, why you recommend this dude? His food was okay, but you know, he's out there trying to steal your business and all that. And because I talked to my client and I told him, hey, I wasn't available, I'm booked, but I have somebody else that is comparable. And said, I'm trying to put money in other people's pockets. My philosophy was, if you spread it, you know, then, you know, there's nothing to think for. It goes around. You know, I spread love, love comes back to you. I just, but wow, you know, so yeah, in business, you got crabs in the barrel because it's, you know, it's money related. You know, people are trying to, you know, but so I don't know what you do. I just, the only thing I could do, I'd just be me, man. And
you know what, Chuck, I get it, but you know what, Charles, once again, man, I mean, you know, I know I have, you know, I wasn't there taking them on there, but I took a few psychology classes, man, and it has a lot to do with self-confidence. And if it started at home, so say if somebody came down on you at the crib, you know, at home, and they oppressed you or they kept you down, that mentality tends to transcend in your system, and you tend to act that way unless you have some type of growth to grow out of it. And I see it happening when it comes to somebody like that, where you talk about somebody, say, so what's up, my man? What's up, my man Chuck? Man, he all right, but you know, his food good, but I'm like, you was just big upping him and then you button, and now you throwing out butts.
That's right.
You know, so I'm like, every time you talk to about someone and they say but or whatever, I think they're either consciously or unconsciously, you know, there's an issue with that, you know, and it can hit you in all forms as far as negativity. Just like for us, we're all working on ourselves. We're trying to get up and walk. We're going to the doctors. We're doing all these things. But there's somebody saying, why are you going to the doctor? You ain't got to go to next year. Why are you doing it? Because they doing it.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's self-talk. They can talk you out of it financially. You know, well, I'm trying to save up to buy this house, or I'm trying to buy this car. But come hang out every weekend. They want you to come to happy hour, and they know that you're trying to make sure you got that money together. You know, and if they know this and they're purposely doing it, that's also whether it's a conscious or unconscious crap mentality. They're pulling you down because they know that that extra $100 could go toward whatever you need to, or that extra $300 or whatever. It adds up, and
Yeah, if
even
they
with
know
Chuck,
if they know what
you
you're
know, regard
doing, they
to-
should be encouraging you to
Right.
continue down
Right.
that path, not, you know, come out with the fellas and spend
Right.
money.
Well-
So absolutely.
right. Well,
Now, for anybody
well,
listening that
prime
might be
example with
saying,
Chuck. How many people? I mean, I don't know, Chuck. What when you started your business, when you went from the grill, you know, to the buggy to the wagon. I mean, how many people was thinking like, damn, you gonna spend that much money on that? Yeah, I mean, you know, you can do something else with that money. You can invest that money, you know. But if you had listened to those people, you would never been who you were,
That's right.
you know. And it was all about the self confidence that you have for yourself, you know.
yeah,
So that's what I think it is, Charles. It goes way back, man. But you gotta be strong mentally. But people gonna talk junk to you, say whatever. But you can always pick up on that dude because there's always something negative. Like, you know, they not every time you say something good, you know, they say 3 things bad. It's like, okay, well then let's change the subject.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But
I mean,
you know when somebody's trying to, you know, compliment you versus somebody that's making an underhanded comment.
sure.
You know the difference. It's kind of intangible,
right.
but you know the difference.
Yeah, another way that you identify these folks is they tend to be gossips. You know what I mean? My grandmother used to say that a dog will bring you a bone, right? And they will, if they carry one away also, you know, they'll basically the whole mindset was if they're going to bring you a bone, they're going to carry one away also, which means if they're talking about people to you, chances are they're talking about you to other people as well.
Yeah.
So if you're around that person that is,
Right.
you know, always running off at the mouth,
Mhm.
you know, hating on individuals, gossiping, things of that nature to you, then, you know, you've identified the hater. You've identified the person with the crab mentality in the group because that they have a tendency to operate in that particular fashion.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any comments
Right.
about that before we move to the next question? All right.
I was just say, I don't know. Have you guys ever heard of the dog in the manger mentality?
Nah, say more about that.
It's something that I read. It was like there's a dog, a big dog in the manger. He's laying on a couple of piles of grain, or he's bags of grain, and one's broken open. Dogs don't eat grain, but the horses do, and the horse is on the outside of the manger looking in, but he won't move. They're scared of the dog. So that's that in reference to people who they got something and they don't need it, but they ain't gonna let you have it.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Good
Wow.
analogy.
Yeah, it
No
is.
doubt. No doubt. Well, guys, I know Chuck, you shared your experience with the restaurant,
Mhm.
but what other personal experiences have you had with the crab mentality in your lives?
Oh,
Whether it's
early
family,
on,
coworkers, you know, again,
I'll
members
go
of the
back
community.
before, you know,
Yeah.
when I was a police officer, I used to see it. One of the things that used to drive me absolutely insane is when we were being drafted enough as it is to work overtime. I used to be, for those listening, I used to be a police officer. And, you know, if we're short staffed, you know, supervisors would come to you, you'd about to hit the clock and punch out for the day. Hey man, so and so is not coming or whatever. You're drafted, which means you're forced to work overtime, stuff like that, right? Okay.
Right.
Well, sometimes you know overtime goes up and down. So when overtime starts to go down, these
The
officers,
crabs
man,
come out.
oh my God. So yeah, I want to work overtime, Lou. Short for lieutenant. Yeah, well, you know, we book everybody. I got everybody I need for overtime. Man, they going around. Hey, man, hey, they want to switch with you, this, that, and the other. And if you don't switch, I mean, you've committed a sin. Now you gotta. We ain't friends no more. I gotta. Anytime you do anything out the way, I'm gonna snitch on you. And now you switching. I mean, really over overtime.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know,
How they
it
gonna
just.
tell you what you need, right, Chuck?
Oh man, you
They can
know.
tell you
So
what you need. You don't need it. When they say,
right,
Chuck, you
right,
don't need
right.
it, Chuck.
Yeah. I mean, so like let's say on a shift you got 30 officers working, and half the damn shift has been drafted. to stay over and work another 4 hours, whatever, right? But whoever, and these are all the people that had the lowest overtime numbers. That's how you got drafted, all right? Or you were assigned overtime. So a dude that's got already has high overtime hours, can't work anymore. So it starts going down the list. Hey man, I'll work for you. If you drafted, you want to go home, I'll work for you. And so, let this dude not get his hours. Oh my God. Oh, and I mean, this went on for 20 plus years. Same dudes, all this.
Yep.
Now, I was chairman of the FOP at one point, and one of the things I was trying to do was the fight was to increase your base pay so that you didn't have to spend your life working all these hours for overtime, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, make more money on the front end so you don't have to work on the back end. They fought me on that. Yeah. You mess with our overtime? You gonna take away our overtime? They fought me to work hard, and so that was a form of crabs in the barrel mentality. Mm-hmm. They fought because the overtime hounds were the ones
and
that
lack
fought.
of vision.
Yeah, well, the overtime hounds, they were killing it. They were making all the money, and they were cutting deals and making money, all that stuff. So that's an interference to them. You're cutting into their bottom line. So if you're cutting into their bottom line, they weren't having it. So I mean, just on both sides. Some people wanted to progress. Other people just wanted stuff to stay the same. And that was that fight that it was terrible, man. And I had to get out of that environment, man. But that's what it's like in the work world sometimes, especially that kind of, and management, they loved it. Mm-hmm. They loved it. They're fighting over overtime. And so they'd throw little pieces of meat out there. Hey, I got 8 hours here. I got 16 hours here, stuff like that. And it would just make them fight even more.
And cats couldn't see it. And the thing about it is, that's lack of vision. They couldn't see it. Yeah. You couldn't see what the administration was doing. And you got to have that vision, man. When you work in an environment like that, you have to have that type of vision.
Right. And no matter how many times I was saying to them, would you like to make another $40,000 on your base pay? Or would you rather come in here another 40 hours a week or whatever to make another $20,000 and be taxed at a higher rate?
When it's the root to all evil, bro, they can't hear you. They go deaf. They can't hear you. Root to all evil.
Yeah, no doubt.
Time to go.
So, Stefan, personal experiences.
Well, first, to go back to Chuck's statement or personal experiences, there's no overtime in the military. You get a base pay. And if you need to work 16 hours, that's what's going to happen.
Yes, sir.
And we don't want to hear, well, somebody else is, only working 10 hours. That ain't our problem. You're going to do this because we said you're going to do it.
Right,
but, personal experience with me, I'll go to a relationship. I had a relationship not too long ago where it was a crab in the mentality type of family. I was dating this girl. And I was probably, and I'm not tooting my own horn, but I was probably an upgrade to other guys that she had dated. I had a bachelor's degree. I was getting ready to retire from the Army. Going to be a successful contractor.
You're a good catch.
Yeah, I thought so. And she said, you're a good catch. But 6 months into the relationship, after I didn't show enough hood tendencies, from a male's perspective, a hood tendency. I hadn't done any time. I had done some wild things that they were up to. Oh, the family turned against.
No bullet wounds, Steph?
Right, no bullet wounds. Zero bullet wounds. No blemishes on my record. The family.
You gotta get your street cred up, brother. You gotta get your street cred up, brother.
You gotta wear your Timberlands more, okay?
At least. Come on, man.
Hey, Steph, you should have got a parking ticket.
Where's that good old brand new wine swagger?
There ain't no down a brand new wine. But seriously, the family turned against me and started talking to her about, you need to leave this dude alone. He's too good at two shoes. What?
Wow.
They couldn't.
They
didn't understand you, man. They didn't want to conform to your standards. Your standards were too high for them, and that's what the problem was.
Right. And it's like, man. Then they turned against her and convinced her that I wasn't the right one, and they were so bold with it. They were so bold with it that they would bring other dudes around just to meet her.
Wow.
and granted, these dudes were
I would
these dudes may have had.
you. This is famous. This is the famous one. You remember how that? Remember you used to say, "Give the scissors."
Yeah,
You should have did that a long time ago. Damn that.
yeah. Well, eventually,
They couldn't.
it worked itself out, and I only wasted 2 years of my life with this one, but now
Man.
but now I've gained 7 years with the right one.
Okay.
So
Oh yeah, no
Really
doubt.
happens for a
No doubt.
reason.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, it was a blessing.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of what took place with my son when he was in school. And I'm not talking about college. I'm talking about like elementary, middle school, in that vicinity. And he came to me, he was sort of upset. And I'm like, what's going on? It's because some of the kids in the class were getting on him because he was smart. He was getting good grades. And I'm like, you've got to be freaking kidding me, man. I was furious
No.
that he had to deal with this nonsense because, and I had to break it down to him. I said, the coolest thing in the world is being smart, being able to, walk your own path, to have different experiences, to think for yourself, all those sorts of things, because, he had these hood type characters that were in his school that didn't feel like it was cool to be smart. And he had to deal with that nonsense. And I'm like, man, stuff like that just drives me crazy. It absolutely does.
It's not that it wasn't too cool for them
It's,
to be smart. It's that they were dumb,
Right. Right.
and they,
well, not
they didn't
even
want
that.
anybody to look better than them.
But that's been going on forever, man. How many times we done seen that in school, man? That somebody, you talking too white. I'm like, what is that? How do you
Yeah.
talk too white? Or you talk? I'm like, come on, man. I said, just because it's called proper English.
That's right.
That's
And,
correct.
and the key is to be able to talk your slang when you need to talk it and be able to flip back on the flip mode when you need to do it. That's the technique.
Yes,
That's
sir.
the technique to be able to go to the hood and we talk hood with our friends or whatever, and then we get back to the workplace, we able to flip that mode. Now your boy Deion Cole try to make he try to make fun of it, but it's true. That's what people
It
do,
is.
though. I mean, that's why it was hilarious when he did that. I cracked up because I do the same thing. I could be at work. Yeah, sure, no problem. What do you need? Sure, of course. Prime example. I do all this, but when I get home, like, what the hell? Listen,
Right.
What happened when we get together? We out talk, out do it crazy, whatever. So
That's
I
right.
mean, I think it's a technique, and the thing about it is that the same thing with being smart. You can be a smart kid, also be cool, but if you don't want to be cool and you want to be who you are, if he has that self-confidence or she has that self-confidence to be who you are, because that's
right.
what's going to take you far, not what people think. And it goes back to that oppressive mentality and being able to have the confidence to break out of that
That's
oppressive
right.
mentality that we've been dealing with forever. Ever since the time we came over in the boat, people been oppressed, with that mentality, not only from the other people, but from our people too. So there's always a constant psychological battle going on.
No
And
doubt.
I'll segue to that point in regards to what I experienced being a lead. I was asked to be a lead officer at the job there was 10, I think there were maybe 10 positions. And out of those 10 positions, all of them went to new employees. A lot of the senior people who've been there 5-7 years more than I have didn't appreciate it all. When I had to take the control one night, I was in charge of the building, and it was like, hey, you're in charge tonight. Make sure these guys do what they need to do. And to be able to go to a senior gentleman and say, hey, man, how you doing? Good. Listen, I need you to go around and do security checks. Why me? Why you come to me? I'm like, yo, is there a problem, bro? He's like, yo, man, you can't go to nobody. I'm like, yo, what was the issue? I don't even know why they picked you. I said, oh, so that's what it is. It came out. I don't know why they picked y'all. I'm like, why wouldn't they pick me? I went to the same interview you did. I answered the same questions you did, and I got the job. You didn't get the job, nothing personal, but they picked who they picked.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I need you to go finish doing your security check. I was like, okay, I'll be your MF. Just, hey, as long as you keep it over there, brother, you know what I mean? I'll be
Right.
whatever, just get your job done. So, I experienced that a few times with different senior staff, and I'm like, it was their issue, not mine. So that's why I didn't take it personal. At first I did, but I'm like, yo, they mad at themselves because maybe they, it was something maybe that they didn't do. But that's the problem is that a lot of people get that crab mentality because that failure mentality, like instead of them asking you, what did you say on the test, or what did you say in the interview, or what did you do with this question, and learning, and maybe putting that towards something else the next time,
That's right.
they couldn't deal with their failure. So they took the failure personally, and then they tried to transfer that anger on you. And you just have to be smart enough to be able to handle that. And that's what it was. So I was able to go on and do my thing, and went on, without any problem. But it took at least a good 6 months, man, to get these guys to really respect me in that nature. But the thing about it is, you ain't got to respect me, but you got a job to do. So you
That's
can
right.
talk all that nonsense all you want, whatever. But if the job's not done, you get written up. You deal with the administrator. And I just kept it like that in the meeting. I said, if you don't do I made it clear cut to anybody that got a problem with it. Do your job. I asked you to do. If you don't do it, then you go talk to the man tomorrow. Plain and simple. And I think that was clear. When you give people clear cut, directions, I think it's easier than you make this long drawn out, plan.
That's right.
And then the reverse crab mentality was when I went to the one of the homes for children and I became a supervisor there. I was a line staff, and then once again we had interviews. I became a supervisor. Now all those people that you was cool with, they weren't negative, but now they try to take advantage. And that's a reverse crab mentality. Why are you gonna try to make me look bad? If I say be back with the kids at 4 because they got to do whatever, we got to follow the routine. You kept coming back at 4:45.
Okay. Try to take advantage of the relationship.
Right. So that's a reverse crab mentality where they're not saying it outright, or what do they call it? I forgot what they're hiding it. I forgot what passive aggressive. I don't know what it was, but they would do the opposite, and they would take advantage of because you were a line staff with them. So I've experienced it both sides of it: the crab pull down, or to try to make you look bad mentality.
Yeah, that's a great example. That's a great example. And matter of fact, I had some issues at work as well. Just to share my personal experience, when I first got hired at a major telecom, I was actually brought on board as a temporary employee, which meant that I was only supposed to be there for like 36 months. But I had, higher aspirations, and I was able to get myself promoted into management within 2 years. So well before that 36 months was to expire, I broke the ranks of management. But when I walked into the company as an associate, I never operated with an associate mentality. It was always about propelling myself, moving forward, breaking the ranks of management. So I used to come in dressed, shirt and tie, carrying my Wall Street Journal, carrying my briefcase, things of that nature, even though I had an associate position where everybody around me was wearing jeans and things of that nature. So that was my mentality. But trust and believe, man, success leaves footprints. So when you see individuals out there that are doing their thing and they've gotten to a place where you aspire to be, you simply, just like you said, you ask questions, you follow their path, and you can definitely have the success that you look for. But once I broke the rank of management, oh my God, man, a lot of people that, were speaking to me day in and day out when I was at their level, I was cut off, dude. I mean, I became an instant enemy. It was just crazy, man. It was just unbelievable. And I expected to get that from the other persuasion that had been there for many years before I was. They had the seniority and, they're very seniority focused and things of that nature. They didn't think that I was necessarily deserving to get to that next level.
Right.
But I expected far more support from the people that looked like me. And unfortunately, I didn't get it. Maybe 1 or 2 individuals had my back, but for the most part, I was public enemy number 1, kid. And it just got real crazy. So that's my situation. But as we attempt to wind down here, let me just ask you one more thing. And that is, how do you deal with the haters? Once you sort of discover that they're operating around you, how do you deal with that? Because one example that I want to throw out there, you all, I'm sure you remember this case. It recently was in the news. Kevin Hart, his boy, Jonathan Jackson, set him up and attempted to extort money from him. Now, I'm talking about close friends. This is a guy that Kevin Hart, actor, comedian, was attempting to help. He put this guy in one of his movies, Just Be a Man 2. gave him opportunities. I mean, and you got to know when all of them went out and they were getting, turned up, drinks, whatever, you know Kevin Hart was paying, right?
Yeah.
So here you have this hater that is disguised as your friend that attempts to extort money from you in the end, and now he's facing 4 years in prison as a result of his activities. Attempting to extort him. So this is an individual, again, that hung out with Kevin for years, but he was a wolf in sheep's clothing. So obviously, most of our cases aren't necessarily that overt, right? But how do you deal with the haters once you discover who they are?
You got to cut them off.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. That might be a little extreme to some people.
Mm-hmm.
But and I'll confess, I'm a cancel culture dude. That's what's gotten me this far. All right, I cut cancers out of my life. I don't allow things to fester and grow. And after being on this earth for 21 plus years, I would think you would know right from wrong, and then there's moral issues that come into play and all that. Now, that's not to say that I can't forgive you. That's not to say that we can't still associate. That's not to say all of those things. But in that particular area, if we've been friends, and it doesn't even have to be lifelong friends, but if we're friends, that means that I've allowed you into my circle, and vice versa. You've allowed me into yours. But what makes it especially egregious in this Kevin Hart case is everybody that's in Kevin Hart's circle, he's put money in their pocket. And when I say money, I'm not talking about, hey, here's $250. Here's $250,000. Here's, now, don't get me wrong, these guys, they're working. He's putting in the work. But I'm saying this guy, some of the other guys he has around him, they're comedians too, the Plastic Cup Boys, all that. So they're earning their way as well. But Kevin has made these opportunities for them. He made the same opportunity for this guy. This guy wasn't broke. That's what I'm getting at. It's not that he needed the money, if you know what I'm saying. But if he did need the money, I really believe that he could have reached out, and it didn't have to go this way. But you never know somebody's level of greed. You never really know what somebody's going through in their personal life, stuff like that. But if we're friends like that, I have to cut you off. I got to put you where you're in a box now, and because that protects me. You've shown you did what you did. We may still associate in some areas. I may even still be able to work and associate and get money with you because that benefits me. But personally, you're probably canceled with me because you violated something so sacred. You know what I mean? Yeah. If you're in my circle, if I've allowed you in my circle, you've allowed me in yours, that's and then you break that trust. That's too much for me.
I agree wholeheartedly with everything that you said. One thing I will challenge, Jonathan Jackson, he was broke. This guy was listed his profession as a professional bowler since 2006 with career earnings of less than $5,000. Now, I don't know what else was going on in his life, but again.
So then was he really in Kevin's circle, or was he just an acquaintance?
Nah. From what I understand, he was definitely in a circle. Like I said, Kevin Hart put him in one of his movies. There may have been more productions that he was a part of. I'm not sure, but I know for a fact he was in that Just Be a Man 2 movie. This guy, either way, man, it's no excuse whether he's broke, rich. What he did is just completely and totally inexcusable. Mike,
real quick, to Mr. Hart's avail, his core crew wasn't there. They all weren't there. The ones that you see around him, real close to him, those dudes were not there. Everybody, for some reason, had something to do that weekend, so he had a skeleton crew. Y'all know what that means, a skeleton crew. You don't have your full crew. So maybe he didn't have his full confidence. I don't know. But whatever the reason why my man did, he was wrong, plain and simple. But to get back to your question, I think we need to do more in order to stay positive. I think we need to we can compete and we can also congratulate the opposition.
Mhm.
And that's what I've been doing, since we've been doing our thing, with Just Be a Man. But also, like-minded individuals, you need to change your environment.
Mhm.
If you're in a negative environment and people are not talking positive, then you got to change your environment. I've learned to do that over the years, where if I'm with some dudes and they ain't not my cup of tea and they start talking like reckless or talking about doing stuff where they can't hold their liquor, I'm at the point in my life I ain't got time for that. So I got to slowly start distancing myself. I'll come show up. I'll have 1 or 2 pops with you, but then I got to go because I know on that 5th pop, you're going to like, why this dude looking at me, or, he one of them dudes.
Right.
So, you also have to recognize that, so not only changing your environment, but you need to be around like-minded individuals,
Mhm.
people on the same wavelength. You know what I mean? If you're not there, try to get there. If you're not, then figure out why you're not there and then try to keep working on it.
That's good. That's real good.
What else? Meetups. Meet up with people like we do right here. Whether we realize it or not, this is a meetup. We're talking about things that we agree with or we don't agree with. But the thing about it is, it's bringing out conversation that's elevating our intellectual ability to deal with things. You understand? So every time we do a podcast, this is almost like a meetup. We're learning things. I'm learning from you guys. I'm learning from Steph. I'm learning from Chuck.
Mhm.
You, Charles. Everybody's giving me a different point of view from every walk of life. So I'm taking that in, and I'm going to hopefully be able to utilize that one day somewhere else. You know what I mean? So the thing is about, the positive self-talk and all those different things. You got to stay focused, man, because I'm going to tell you, working in an industry where Steph is in, when the U.S. Army, working in some correction facility where you're locked in and you're dealing with trauma a lot, whatever, or even personal business, somebody's attacking you personally, or you got the crabs in the barrel mentality constantly, that's a stressful, anxiety-ridden place, man.
No
So
doubt.
I don't want to get all deep, man, but I go on forever with that stuff. But I just think that you need to place yourself in a positive environment.
I like that. Like-minded individuals. Stefan, you have the last word on this one.
Okay, it's real easy. I was a paratrooper in the United States Army at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Did about 30 jumps. Anyway, there's a jump master command that says, if you're a toe jumper, in other words, when we jump out, we jump with a static line. And the static line is connected to the aircraft. But if the static line does not allow your parachute to open, you become a toe jumper. Most of the time, it's because of poor exit out of the aircraft. Anyway, what I will do as a jump master, if you're a toe jumper, I will cut your line free. So once you feel yourself falling, activate your reserve parachute. I say the same thing with a friend or so-called friend as a crab in a barrel friend. I'm gonna cut your static line. I will do exactly what Chuck says. I'm gonna counsel you. I'm gonna let you go because you're not doing any good to me. That's why I mentioned earlier, I have a tight group of friends. Y'all are it, because I had to cut a lot of jumpers and set them free so they could go and do what they needed to do in life, and I could be free of the stress and drama in my own life.
All right. All right. Very well
That's
said.
facts.
Very well said.
Well
Well,
said.
I
I
do
agree.
have one final question, guy. I know I said the last one was the last one. I know we're winding down, getting late, but I do have this one last question. It's a bit controversial, so if you don't want to answer it, that's cool. But we are Just Be a Man podcast, so we put it out there.
Right.
So
Man
when
up.
Black people speak out against other Black people, and let me give you some examples: Clarence Thomas,
Hate him.
Ben Carson.
Hate him.
Um,
Although he's a
Dan-
smart doctor.
Daniel Cameron, the attorney general in the Breonna Taylor case.
Coon.
Now, is this a form of the crabs in the barrel mentality? When we
No.
speak out against those individuals, why or why not?
I'll answer first. No, it's not. We're identifying people that are weak and destroying the Black community. And, and we've come too far. And, those individuals that you just named are basically, in my opinion, Steve from Django. They're there to serve the white man and make the white man happy. Tim Scott is another example, Republican from South Carolina. Nope, we're not pulling them down. We're just calling them out. That's how I look at it.
Okay.
I don't necessarily see it as a crabs in the barrel mentality, as they are not trying to prevent anybody else from, ascending. What I do accuse them of is tokenizing their blackness in order to get ahead. So, using the examples that Stefan used, Tim Scott, the AG, they, all black folks, just because you're brown don't mean you down. Okay, so
Right.
the keeping it real, the other side, if you will, needed to use their blackness to get votes and to make them seem more palatable to us, pandering. And you have a segment of our culture that knows full well that it's pandering, but they're willing to allow their blackness to be used for them to get ahead. In other words, in our culture, the term we use is they're willing to do something strange for some change.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So no, I don't think it's necessarily crabs in the barrel mentality, because they're not trying to, jump ahead of somebody else or pull somebody else down to get ahead.
Right.
They're literally using their blackness, monetizing their blackness. That's exactly what they're doing. They're monetizing their blackness to the benefit of another race, I guess
Okay.
is the best way to say it, to the other race's benefit. I've been dancing around the term sellout. In my heart and in my mind, that's what I believe they're doing. But because they can't defend themselves, I won't say that. But that's what I believe.
Okay. All right, Mike.
You know what? With all them dudes, man, they had to knew there was a price to pay. For prestige, there's a price to pay. You just don't get that high on that mantle wherever they are, whatever level they're on. Clarence Thomas, whoever. The thing about there's a price to pay. What are you willing to give up? What are you willing to give up? Are you making a deal with the devil? I mean, the thing about it shouldn't be hard for somebody to be successful and get to a certain point, but you shouldn't have to give in. And I'm sure that there's a certain realm that we've never experienced. I'm not sure. I mean, Steph has reached a pinnacle level. He might have to deal with something where somebody tried to make him, make a deal. I don't know. But I know when you get to the higher you go, the more deals or the more things people try to test you to do to see how far you're going to go or how bad you want it. And I think that a lot of these dudes didn't realize that. And when they got to that point, when it was time to pay up, when it's time to come, when the rent was due, they had to make a choice, and they wound up doing something that's going to devastate their career or have them go down negatively in history.
Wow. Yeah, I agree with just about everything you guys said. I think you nailed it. And I think, we as a Black community, we're diverse in nature, and we give each other grace to be diverse. There are Black Democrats, there are Black Republicans, there are Black independents, but it's really the action that they engage in. Like, I don't believe anyone on this podcast, for example, would refer to Colin Powell, for example, who is a devout Republican, as a sellout. He may not share our political views, but we don't view him in that fashion because of the way he carries himself, the action that he's taken, or in some cases hasn't taken. So I definitely agree with you guys completely that there is a different category for the Daniel Camerons of the world, for sure.
Right. The thing about it is he knew, it's sad, bro, but he knew what he was getting into. There was some talk. He didn't just wake up that morning and say, I'm going to handle this case or whatever. Everybody gave him. He knew that what the backlash and all that stuff was going to be. He took that responsibility. He made that deal. He knew that there was probably something on the back end for him, and he was willing to do that. So is that sellout mentality?
We talking about the AG?
Huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we talking about sellout mentality? Are we talking about oppressor mentality where it was reverse oppressor mentality where he finally thought he got up from under the thumb and the thumb came back?
Mm-hmm.
The thumb came back down on him and he did what he had to do. And it's unfortunate that he had to do it that way because that he'll never ever. He'll go down in history, man. I'm sorry, man. I feel sorry for that brother, man, because
I don't feel sorry
I
for
don't
him.
know. I got a
This
bad
dude
taste
is
in my
this
mouth.
dude is Mitch McConnell's son-in-law, or about to be. No, they just got married. He's Mitch McConnell's son-in-law.
Ugh.
So no, I don't feel sorry for him.
All
He,
right.
I mean, you,
Let's change. Can we change the topic?
yeah. Let's,
Well,
let's
actually,
Yeah,
we
man.
need to wrap this thing up
Okay.
because,
Okay.
you know, we
Yeah.
could talk
Let's
about
wrap
this
it up,
all
man,
night.
'cause
yes,
I
indeed.
can't give this dude no love. I'm sorry.
I can't
Yeah.
either. No,
Yeah.
not at
So
all.
in other words, they're not invited to the barbecue.
Yeah. But hey,
No.
hey, Steph, but he can go to the picnic.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
All right. Well, that is our time for this evening. We are, again, Just Be a Man, and look for us on the various social media platforms. Until next time, we wish you peace and blessings.
Deuces.